Welcome to the Talking Risk podcast. We discuss all things risk, hazard mitigation, insurtech, industry insights, and more. I'm your host, Brian Harris, Risk Control Director with FCCI Insurance Group, and with me is Ralph Hines, Risk Control Specialist with FCCI Insurance Group. Today's topic is fleet safety best practices. Welcome aboard.
Yes, thank you so much. Nice to be here. This is an important topic, to say the least.
Absolutely. And today we're going to talk about some of the factors that are impacting why it's necessary or important to have good fleet safety programs in place. So a lot of issues that are driving things that make it important to have those programs in place to minimize your potential for accidents. So we're going to talk about the bad. We're going to talk about the good. We're going to talk about the best practices. And we're going to talk about resources that our customers can utilize to help improve their fleet safety policies and procedures. So up first, why discuss the topic? I've got three things here, and feel free to comment or add to them, and they are nuclear verdicts, litigation financing, and insurance rates. Does any of those jump out at you?
They are relatively newer terms. I would say in my career, being in the second half of my career, they are scary, but with every offense, there's a defense. Like we got this reptile theory, and then we got the mongoose theory, right? And we can delve into a little more, but as a best practice, we as working for you as our customer, I believe we need to give you our best as well. And that's another area that, as this thing starts to grow, where we can be of assistance, because, things that can be used against you guys that result in these nuclear verdicts. By the way, what's a nuclear verdict? I guess we need to talk about that, right? So really, anything, the exceptionally high jury awards, typically over $10 million, is what we're seeing. They're becoming common more and more every year. The American Transportation Institute said there's a 50% increase in these type of verdicts. So all these things are so my point, though, is the best practice I'd like to help our customers, I think we would like to help them, is pointing out these things, right? And where are they lacking and where are they doing well, because of the reptile and the mongoose, right? So just very interesting reading, and that could be a whole nother podcast by itself.
So I was going to say that you shouldn't leave our listeners hanging when you talk about those two terms. So are you able to sum them up in a couple sentences?
Yeah,
as
real
a teaser
quick.
For a future episode?
Yeah, so the reptile theory is a theory that the lawyers come up with, where they're able to influence a part of our brain that is looking to show to be easier to sway, right? So, and then the mongoose theory is the mongoose would eat the reptile, right? Because the mongoose method, it aims to attack and crush the reptile. So a good example, real quick, is literature. Say, for example, one of our customers says safety is our top priority, right? Then they have a bad accident, and it's proven that there are no controls in place. There's no MVRs. There's no documented driver training. But hey, safety is our top priority. So on the reptile side, the lawyer will use that against our customer. On the mongoose side, we can help.
And both of those things, the nuclear verdicts, and I'll touch on litigation financing just briefly, those things are driving automobile insurance rates for business owners, right? Mm-hmm. So commercial auto insurance is expensive for business owners, and it's expensive for insurance carriers. It seems like the only one who's really finding commercial automobile insurance profitable is plaintiff attorneys.
Yes.
And that goes into your theory with the reptile philosophy and all that stuff. And then you bring in, if there wasn't a lot of money to be made in filing lawsuits in regard to auto accident liability. You wouldn't have litigation financing. See, these
Yes.
guys, litigation financing are, investments. You get deep pockets that come in to finance cases. So, what we can do when we're talking about safety programs here is trying to help our policyholders do everything that they can to mitigate their exposure to all these, forces that are out there waiting for them to have an accident or make a mistake.
Yes. Yeah, very much, which leads to the next topic, right? The increased cost of insurance. Thinking about that, that this, because we see this, right? It's part of our daily work life, increases in premium and things like that. So I was just, what are some reasons that this is happening, right? From what we just talked about, right, is going on, the nuclear verdicts. These lawyers are out there where it's, you pay nothing if your case is not successful, but you pay if you win. Basically, that's what we're talking about. But think about these other things. How much does it cost to repair a vehicle? These costs have increased, right? Now we've got cameras, telematics, we've got wrapping around vehicles, increasing costs. Do you know there's a driver shortage there? I read this statistic, it was very interesting. It's estimated that 160,000 commercial driving positions are going to go unfilled in the next year, forcing companies to hire inexperienced drivers, which is just going to cause additional problems on our roadways, which is going to again raise the cost of insurance, right? Because we've got a lot of inexperienced drivers out there. Elevated medical costs, and then the worst one of them all will hit is the epidemic. I think it's an epidemic, is distracted driving, and that's going to raise our rates as well.
So, trivia then. We've got a couple statistics regarding traffic fatalities. The average number of distracted driving related fatalities per year is average of 3,000 fatalities per year. And that number has stayed pretty consistent over the last 10 years, averaging around the 3,000 distracted drivings. But then our fatalities were up to 42,795 in 2022. And that number over the past few years had actually sort of trickled down a little bit, and now it's back up. So you look at it in 2014, the number was 32,000. 2022, we're up to 42,000. So it seems to be on an uptick trend again, and that's problematic for all of us, business owners, insurance companies, everybody. Everybody is invested in trying to minimize accidents on our roadways. So what can we do as business owners and insurance companies to help, improve the safety out there on the roads? I want to give you, Ralph, 3 quotes, and these will sort of frame where we go when we start talking about best practices here in a minute. So Daniel J. Dukowski, one of our favorite insurance engineering risk control icons, said fleet risks have a combination of high frequency, high loss potential, and catastrophic loss potential, all rolled into a single line of insurance. So you got it all right there. This activity that a business owner undertakes, it's just as big of a deal as what they do when they get to the job site.
Yes. Yeah. And it doesn't matter, 1 vehicle, 10 vehicles. The exposure is still right there, right? And the biggest thing, and I know we're not forgetting this, but fleet safety, it saves lives, right? The most important thing that any of us can talk about.
What is and I'm putting you on the spot here, but you have a Ralphism regarding driving and the importance of it for the worker. When he's driving, he's doing what?
That's his job. The best way to help prevent these losses is just through training. And then once you do that training, then you do your job, right? Yep. I say that so much, just do your job.
And when you're driving, I think you hit the nail on the head. When you're driving, that's your job.
That's your job.
This is Talking Risk, the risk control podcast from FCCI Insurance Group. You can listen to Talking Risk online at fcci-group.com. Click on Risk Control and select the episode you want to hear. For FCCI teammates, go to Spike, Departments, Risk Control, Podcasts, then select the episode you want to hear. We'll be right back. This quote comes out of the National Safety Council Motor Fleet Safety Manual from 1972. I wasn't on the planet yet. You were, Ralph, but you were young.
Yes.
So, but this quote, I mean, it still holds true today. So here it is. Previous experience in driving as a professional driver or as a private motorist is the most critical indicator of potential ability to drive safely. It has been fairly well established that a person who has had frequent motor vehicle accidents in the past will continue to have frequent accidents in the future. And I think
I've used that before because MVRs have been around a long time, right? And they were the best control in 1970, and they're still the best control today because just what he said, it's indicative of their future. Their past is indicative of the future.
That's right.
Even us too.
And that goes into our final quote, again from Dukowski. The analysis of motor vehicle records is a critical element in the assessment of risk quality. If we were limited to only one risk assessment element, motor vehicle records of the drivers would be the indicator of choice. Good drivers are the most likely to make good risks. Thoughts?
100% agree. And that's one of the best practices that we'll be talking about today that we try to help our customers not only to understand, but to implement.
All right, so we've talked about insurance premiums rising, cost of vehicle repair rising, cost of medical treatment rising. All this stuff doesn't bode well for us on the insurance side and our business owner customers. What can we do together to stem the tide, to mitigate exposure, to reduce risk? We've hit on some of the challenges. Now we're going to look at some of the opportunities that we can take to better our chances at navigating this issue. So we're going to talk about the elements of fleet safety programs that are effective. And right now, we are going to start off with, hey, Ralphie.
Hey, Ralph, Ralphie boy.
How you doing in there, Ralphie boy?
Hi, Ralph.
Come on in, Ralph. Hey, Ralph.
Hey there, Ralphie boy.
Ralphie boy.
Ralphie.
Hey, yeah, Ralph. What is it, Ralph?
How you doing in there, Ralphie boy?
That's good, Ralph. Hey, Ralph.
Hey, Ralphie boy.
All right, you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, so Ralph, the three most important elements of an effective fleet safety program, or the fundamental elements, the building blocks that we start with, are what?
Driver selection, driver training, and driver supervision.
If you're doing those things, we're on our way to having an effective program.
Yeah,
so
and it goes without saying, right, that if we have these things, that management is on board, which we automatically throw that in because both of us are a believer in management.
100%. And we talk about it no matter for all of our, listeners that own businesses, when somebody from an insurance company like us, we come out, we want to sit down and talk to you. The management engagement, ownership commitment to safety and risk management is fundamental, and it shows. And what we see, you tell us, and then we verify it with our eyes. And it's going to show up in loss experience. It's going to show up in employee morale. It affects a lot of things, and it's critical to having an effective fleet safety program. So good management up front, and then the big three that Ralph talked about. Let's start off with selection, since Dukowski said, hey, that's the one he would go with.
Do you know there are more than 214 million licensed drivers in our country and over 252 million registered vehicles? So according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, this was in 2016 that 37,000 people died but now it's the highest since that time that you said that. But interestingly, we did a review of our policyholders, right? Our driver database, then it indicated that drivers with one violation are 336% more likely to have an accident than no violations at all. I thought that's an unbelievable statistic when we looked at all of our drivers. And we figured out that the more violations you have, the increases your chance of having an accident, which is exactly what we were talking about, right? Because not everyone's qualified to drive a company vehicle. In fact, there's some that you should not put behind a vehicle. And why put someone behind a $50,000 vehicle, right, without knowing their history? And then if their history is bad, and motor vehicle record reports are just the best practice. And I believe every customer that we would suggest and help you do it and implement it. Just figuring out, hey, what's my driver's record, and what's indicated that's going to tell me what his future is like. Not even to think about negligent entrustment, and this part of this nuclear verdict that we were talking about.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's what I was thinking with the negligent entrustment aspect. If it's not documented, it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not doing it, it's going to come back to bite you. And as you just mentioned, Ralph, knowing who you're putting behind the wheel is critical. That statistic, the 330 something percent,
Mm-hmm.
is wild. So, it bears saying that it makes sense to run those MVRs. Now, one thing, we hear this a lot. We go out, we talk to a business owner, and we say, okay, so how are you managing your drivers? How do you run MVRs? Say, oh, my agent does it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we encourage, especially with larger fleets, when you're starting to get up 10 vehicles or more, or you've got heavy trucks, you may have 3 dump trucks, but they're over 26,000 pounds. You fall under DOT requirements. The drivers have to have a CDL. You need to be pulling that MVR. You should not rely on a third party, whether it be a broker or whether it be us as the insurance company, to just tell you yes or no. If you run the record, you can see everything that's on there.
Yeah, you own the process. One of the things we try and do too, Brian, and I know you're aware of this, is we understand that a lot of times there is money involved with any recommendations that may be generated from our visit, but we also try to give suggestions or alternatives to this. And one thing I'm seeing more of is, a business owner saying, hey, if you want to work for me, go get me an MVR. Go down to the courthouse or the DOT office in your county and get me an MVR. It's like a drug test, right? If I have no concerns, I'll go get it. If I have some concerns, I'm probably not going to get it.
Next up in the big 3, driver training.
Yeah, driver training. We had mentioned earlier with all these nuclear verdicts, if we don't have proof of this driver training right now, initially, and throughout the course of the year, that's just opening up a can of worms. So, regardless of the amount of drivers that a company has, driving training should be in place, and it should be tailored to meet the needs of that organization, right? Just not to train, just to train. Well-trained drivers make accidents less likely. Training gives them tools so that they can understand, so they can do their job that we talked about. Because I have a friend who's a professional truck driver, and he says, he looks at me straight in the eyes and says, Ralph, this is my job. And he apologizes for other truck drivers, because we've all been on the interstate. And unfortunately, I think that's gone south a little bit of professional. I'm not saying 100%. I'm just saying you drive the road. So I don't think I have to explain that any further. But, so training reduces your loss potential, these potential of these nuclear verdicts, because, what's a prudent person going to do, right? And a business owner has that responsibility. So he has to know the driving history of employees, and provide them with tools and a training program focusing on their exposures so that they can likely reduce the potential for an accident. What else it does too is it just strengthens the company's reputation.
And I'm of the philosophy that less is more. And I think, people are busy. One of the things we hear is, I don't have time to get all my guys in to do a bunch of training. There's a lot of alternatives out there. You don't have to take every driver and run them through a 4 hour course. Break it up over the year, like you mentioned. Do it in small chunks. Hit the things that matter. If I was to say, like Ralph, the most important, if you had to train on one thing with driving, what would it be?
Oof, that's a tough question. I don't know if I could limit it to one thing, but it would be to do your job. That'd be my reply, but that encompasses so many things, right? I mean, distracted driving, defensive driving. I would say learn how to drive defensively.
Okay. I would do following distance.
That's a big one. Kidding. Space and visibility. If
Yeah.
you can monitor those when you're driving a vehicle, keeping space in front of you and the visibility all around you.
So
and I
as you
think
can,
I think accidents are preventable.
yeah. And as
Preventable.
you can see, there's, it's hard to pick just one because they're all important, and so
Yeah.
if you peel them off in bite-sized chunks, you can make a good driver over the course of his employment and then help to reinforce those things over time.
Yeah.
And we'll talk at the end about some resources that our customers have to help them with their training needs when it comes to having a robust training program that they can document. If there's a risk control topic you'd like us to cover, or if you have questions about FCCI's risk control services, send us an email, info@fcci-group.com. FCCI Insurance Group is a multi-regional provider of comprehensive property and casualty insurance and surety products. We cover businesses in 20 states plus Washington, D.C. Our local presence, service, and expertise combined with the knowledge and relationships of our independent agency partners creates a winning combination that sets us apart. To find an FCCI agent partner, visit our website at fcci-group.com and click Find an Agent. Are you an agent interested in working with FCCI? Visit our website at fcci-group.com and click on For Agents. Next up on the big three, which is driver supervision.
Yeah. So, traffic safety authorities have stated that the majority of vehicle accidents can be attributed to failure of your supervisor to convincingly teach, demonstrate, and foster proper attitudes. Is that amazing right there? Because that's the truth, right? With everything we do, there's a hierarchy of leadership. And when it's working, it works. But it's a critical component of fleet safety because driver supervision enforces good driver behavior and performance. It ensures that the drivers are putting training into action. And the quality of supervision is especially important in the operation of a motor vehicle because that driver, if you think about it, he's on his own without direct supervision for the most part. His performance is a product not only of his skill and knowledge, but his attitude as well, I think.
Yeah.
So using good principles of supervision is one of the most effective ways to positively develop drivers' attitudes. And what are some different methods we can use to do this? Well, we can road test, which I definitely recommend, just getting an idea, using our buddy system, doing the road test, route observations, telematics, dash cams, all good tools. Route observations, we have a lot of customers, and just real quick blurb here, I have one I see constantly. I think I see him every week at a couple convenience stores or grocery stores, and it's a beer distributor. And I sent the guy an email today, and I go, hey, I never stop and talk to your guys. I just wanted you to know, every time you're so consistent and professional, everything that you're doing out there. And I just want, please tell your drivers thank you. So it's kind of just off the cuff there, but I did that today.
Positive reinforcement. All right. Driver distraction.
Whew.
3 elements. We do a lot of stuff in threes, right? So
Yeah.
Driver distraction, keep your eyes on the road, hands on the wheel, and your mind on driving. Expand on distraction.
Yeah. So visual, manual, cognitive, right? Visual, anything that takes my eyes off the road. Manual, anything that takes my hands off the wheel. And cognitives, anything that takes my mind off of my job. of what I'm doing. So I did it. We do a lot of drivers training, and I recently I was doing some research. And so I asked the question, do drivers take distracted driving seriously? And there was a study and I just wanted to share this. So a survey finds that adults recognize that other drivers are behaving irresponsibly, but they find excuses for their own risky driving behavior. In the survey, 90% of the drivers recognize the dangers from cell phones, but found it acceptable to use it themselves. So almost 9 out of 10 is saying, hey, don't do it, but they're doing it themselves. And 35% of these same people admitted to having read or sending a text while driving. So driver distraction. Get a little personal here, right? Because it affects all of us. We all have family and friends. I think distracted driving is selfish behavior. It's not doing your job. And I hate to see anybody go through life knowing that because of their distractions while driving, something that was selfish that they were doing resulted in a fatality of somebody else. I don't want my daughters drive. I tell them that, and I'm just like, please, I don't want no one to go through life. So that's why if we just, get buckled down and do our job behind the wheel and forget about all these other little things and get to our point, get to our destination, right?
And with the modern cars, all the devices that allow us to, have Google Play or Apple, whatever it is, hooking up your Bluetooth and all this hands-free stuff and satellite radios and talk to text and all this. The auto industry is referred to as infotainment systems. That's what they call it. It's a feature that adds thousands of dollars to your car, and you don't have a choice. You can't get rid of the stuff now. Back in the old days, right, when we had cars that had nothing but an AM FM radio, that was it. And you listen to the radio, and that could be a distraction cognitively. And you drove. Now there's all this stuff that's built into the car for our convenience, but it is really challenging to manage when you think about the distraction aspect.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, distracted driving is a choice.
That's right.
Right? There's a coalition out there, by the way, that's called the Road to Zero, right? And it's by 2050, this coalition wants zero fatalities on the roads. And one interesting quote I took out of this was in 2042, they're going to mandate insurance companies that have drivers who are unsafe have to drive an AI type vehicle, right? Where it's just totally controlled. So it's just imagine the things that are going to come in the future. In the end, Brian, and it's still personal accountability and responsibility when you're behind the wheel, and we all need to do our job.
And last thing on distracted driving, then we'll move on. Several years ago when FCCI started looking at the challenge of the commercial auto line of insurance, it seemed as if we had a rash of large losses, all within the span of a year they were related to distracted driving. Distracted driving, as we talked about those three things, it doesn't have to involve an electronic device. We had a fatality where a dump truck operator looked down to something rolled on the floorboard. He looked down, looked up morning rush hour traffic. Traffic is stopped. He rear ends a passenger vehicle, and there's a 2-year-old sitting in the backseat that's killed. Mm-hmm. Right? So it had nothing to do with a cell phone or texting or talking or anything. That just took his eyes off the road for a second. Boom. Yeah. So we just have to be aware that we got to keep eyes on the road, hands on the wheel, mind on driving, and we'll have a shot.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So we'll move along here. Those are the big things. We talked about selection, training, supervision, driver distraction. A couple other elements, and we're not going to dwell on these too much, but it's important to have a documented vehicle maintenance program. You need to keep records. You need to have your vehicles serviced according to schedules. It needs to be documented, because if you have the claim, if you have the accident, same thing. If it gets litigated and the attorney goes, well, when's the last time you did a service on this vehicle? Well, I did it, 2 weeks before the crash. Well, where's the record? Oh, we don't keep records. Well, then it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of factors involved, but keep records, perform maintenance according to manufacturer recommendations, have it done by qualified people.
Yeah. Yep. Hey, that's a benefit of telematics too, to tell you the truth, because it can now document and monitor that.
That's right. And then another element of a good safe or fleet safety program would be accident investigation. So we're trying to prevent crashes with all the things that we've just talked about. But in the event that one does happen, we need to have a process in place to investigate the crash. And that process needs to be known by the drivers themselves because they have a role as well. Whether they're at fault or not, there are steps that they need to take immediately after a crash, because that claim investigation starts right then and there. Everything that they do or say right after the impact could have an impact on the ultimate resolution of that claim.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why in our accident investigation form, we provide instructions for each of our drivers. A little kit should be put in our glove box. But having said that, that's another aspect of training too, because how do you react in that situation where there's additional stress put on you through an accident, by pulled over by the police or whatever it may be? So I always think it's a good idea when we're trained on how to react to these situations, we're going to be better off for it. So how am I going to react? What am I supposed to do when this happens? So micro learning, right? It's a good form of learning and training. 5 minutes.
You perform like you train. At FCCI, risk is our business. We provide services that help business owners better understand and minimize the losses they face every day. Our experienced and credentialed professionals have worked in a wide variety of industries, including agriculture, construction, manufacturing, retail, service, and wholesale distributing. FCCI's risk control consultants meet directly with policyholders to learn the unique nature of their business, combine individual recommendations with online resources and tools to create a custom-tailored plan. Our risk control programs provide clear goals, action plans, and survey schedules to help policyholders accomplish their safety objectives. To learn more about FCCI's risk control resources, contact your agent or visit our website, www.fcci-group.com, and click on Risk Control. We'll be right back. Taking all of those elements, all those best practice elements together, that fleet safety program that encompasses all of those things needs to be written. It needs to be part of the company's policies and procedures. Drivers need to sign for that. They need to review it. They need to have a copy of it. They need to sign for it. It's important. It shows ownership commitment. It doesn't your fleet safety program doesn't have to be a 50-page document. It can be 3 pages and include the essential elements. It's not rocket science. It's putting it on paper, it's adhering to it, and it's making sure that we're living by it as a company.
Yeah. Yeah. If we don't, it's going to lead to these nuclear verdicts. And I just don't want anyone getting into the mode of thinking that it's not going to happen to me. Because when you think about these nuclear verdicts, $10 million plus, and if you haven't taken steps to protect yourself, which is what we want to partner with each of our customers to do, you can face bankruptcy or complete destruction of your company because it's above and beyond the limits associated with your policy, right?
One element that we've been focused on as a company lately is a signed vehicle use agreement, driver agreement. And that's as a result of some of our experience in dealing with a variety of claims. And that vehicle use agreement is an element of that fleet safety program. Do you want to touch on a few of those things?
A company vehicle policy is a legal document It's a binding agreement that clearly defines what a business will and won't allow when eligible employees, which is a key term as well, right? Because we've done their MVR and proven that they meet our point system and they're eligible to drive. So this policy, it protects the business if an employee gets hurt while using the vehicle on company business or property, or if he misuses it and damages it. It's basically a summary of requirements and rules for operating a company vehicle. And I think an important characteristic to have in it is disciplinary actions as well, and to hold each employee accountable to what we're asking them to do.
That's right. So the vehicle use agreement, as well as the fleet safety program as a whole, they establish expectations. They help to reduce accident frequency and severity, hopefully reduce insurance costs. And if you're doing all these things, you're probably going to increase efficiency in the workplace because vehicles are on the road, they're not broke down. Drivers are paying attention, they're getting to where they need to go, they're not having crashes. You have a good business reputation in the community with your rolling billboard out there adhering to the traffic laws and safe driving practices. All right, so we hit on elements of good fleet safety best practices, policies, and procedures, Ralph. Let's hit on, as we start to wrap up here, a couple things, and I think we touched on these, so just maybe briefly. Technology has changed the game when it comes to vehicles. Telematics, that's your GPS programs, and dash cams are changing the way businesses can manage their fleets. Is there anything that we didn't hit on during what we've already discussed that you might want to bring to the table before we start to wrap up?
We're covering it pretty well. We talked about, the main elements. We didn't get into, specific controls and training topics. But that's what our safety awareness driver presentation is very good at. Less than an hour for anybody who may be interested, covers all the exposures associated with driving. I think it's a very good presentation. So that's available through, contacting any of us as your consultants or through our website.
So we are available to help our customers with driver training. We're also we have resources that our customers can use if they need to, if they have an interest in utilizing telematics or dash cams. And the telematics you mentioned, Ralph, they help with efficiency and maintenance, right?
Yeah.
They can help identify drivers who may be operating off hours or outside of a geofence. There's a lot of things we can do with telematics.
Yeah.
And then on the dash cam piece, dash cams, we're mitigating loss potential, right? Those things, not only can they identify areas of improvement in driver behavior, they can also help to exonerate a driver in the event of a crash and help your insurance company to defend that claim, mitigate it, reduce the amount that it's ultimately going to cost everybody.
Yeah. And it encourages safe driving when you think about it, right? Because we're held to another standard now where we're being watched.
So we have at FCCI a vendor alliance program that offers preferred pricing for FCCI policyholders. And we have a handful of companies in that alliance that provide access to dash cams, telematics platforms, MVR platforms, our Risk Solutions Network has a ton of resources, printable resources, short micro video training resources, a ton of stuff on there. Do you want to, and I'm putting you on the spot again, but can you think of an example of like a success story with the Risk Solutions Network? We've recently launched this platform for all of our policyholders. No matter what size premium you have, if you're an FCCI policyholder, you have access to the Risk Solutions Network. And there's a ton of stuff on there, including driver training.
Yeah, so you put me on the spot here. So a good success story. Um, I've been hearing very good results and opinions of the tool. I think it's a very good tool. I have one who likes when I see I constantly email him stuff that I'm seeing new because we get daily updates from the Risk Solutions Network website and we get the emails and he is just I think it's one of the reasons he partnered with us because of all the tools and we were able to sell ourselves that boy we're in this with you not against you and to be able to provide these tools he has pretty much signed up like 10 employees who have access to Risk Solutions Network. So I hear a lot of positives from them on, did you see this or did you check this out? I didn't know this was available. Hey, can you help me keep my OSHA logs on here? So it's just a wonderful tool, and we just want our customers to know that we're in this with them. And we have a cheesy line, make us earn our money, right? You guys pay us money, make us earn it. Call on us. We want to help.
Last week, I had a policyholder, a safety manager, reach out to me. I had got him signed up for Risk Solutions Network, and he called because he wanted some help navigating. He was trying to get the learning management system set up. So this policyholder is specifically utilizing the LMS feature, learning management system feature of the Risk Solutions Network to do driver training. So he's going to, you can add your employees in, then you can assign your training. It's like each session's like 10 minutes. And as the manager, you are notified and you have a record of when the training is completed, what the score was, whether or not it's past due for completion. So there's a lot of good stuff in there.
Yeah.
So if you are listening and you are interested in more information about the Risk Solutions Network or the FCCI Risk Control Vendor Alliance, I'd encourage you to go to the FCCI homepage at fcci-group.com and navigate to the risk control section at the top, and you'll find links to these topics there. Ralph, we've run a good race here today. We've talked about a lot of material from the bad to the good. Anything else you want to say as we close out here?
I just think we all have a duty to do all we can to protect them, to encourage them, to be there for them, and to do whatever we can so that we go home every single night.
When it comes to driving, we are all in it together. We all rely on each other. Stay safe out there, everybody. Ralph, it's been a pleasure. We'll see you all soon. You can listen to Talking Risk online at fcci-group.com. Click on Risk Control, then Risk Control Resources, and select the episode you want to hear. For Talking Risk, I'm Brian Harris. Recording copyright FCCI Services Inc. 2022. The opinions expressed in this recording don't necessarily represent those of FCCI, its personnel, or affiliates. This recording is provided for informational purposes only, does not attempt to identify all potential hazards or remedial actions, and is not intended as legal or professional advice. FCCI, its personnel, and affiliates shall not be liable for any loss, death, damage, or expense arising out of your reliance upon this recording. You are solely responsible for complying with applicable law, including any changes in the law, and for the safety of your operations. Please consult your legal advisor with any